Tonight, before we go anywhere else, I'd like you to notice one simple thing. You have made it to this moment. The day is finally behind you. The messages, the deadlines, the unfinished plans, they can wait on the far side of the door you have just closed. Right now, it is only you, your breath, the quiet of this room, and a soft little story that does not ask you to do anything at all. If you are lying down, let your body sink a little deeper into the bed. If you are sitting, allow your spine to soften and your shoulders to melt away from your ears. You do not have to hold yourself together for anyone in this moment. For the next while, your only job is to listen, to breathe, and to be gently carried. Take a slow breath in and let it fall out in its own TMA. Another slow breath in and exhale just a little longer than you inhaled. As your breath finds this softer rhythm, we are going to drift into a world that is usually invisible. Not into the distant stars tonight, not yet into galaxies or ancient ruins, but into a quiet universe that lives inside you, in every single cell of your body. Some people call it a code. Others call it a blueprint. Tonight, we will think of it as a tiny spiral library of light, tucked away like a secret hallway in every cell. Scientists call it DNA, but you do not have to remember any of the letters. You can simply imagine it as a shimmering staircase, winding gently upward and downward at the same TMA, holding the story of how life builds itself. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Sleepy Insight channel. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. And now that we have said all of that, you do not have to touch any buttons or do anything more. You can let the world of screens slip to the edges of your awareness. This time is for you. Imagine, for a moment, that your attention is like a small lantern in your hands. All day, that lantern has been turned outward towards other people, other needs, bright notifications, and demanding tasks. Now, very slowly, you turn the lantern inward. The beam of its light moves from the outside world back toward your own chest, your own breathing, the quiet weight of your body resting where you are. As the light grows softer, something else begins to appear. You might picture it as a spacious, dark blue night, not above your head, but beneath your skin. Floating inside that inner night are countless tiny sparks, cells, each one a miniature world, each one quietly following instructions it never forgets. Choose just one of those sparks and drift closer to it. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Perhaps it is a cell in the skin of your fingertips, or in the lining of your lungs, or in the beating muscle of your heart. Whichever it is, let yourself imagine that you are shrinking down, peacefully, gliding through that soft dark until the single cell fills your view like a glowing moon. Inside this cell, there is a center, a gentle, protected space where the instructions live. You step through, not with your feet, but simply by allowing the eye image to open, like a door in a dream. In that center, something pale and luminous loops and folds in on itself. It is calm, patient, impossibly organized. This is the hidden realm we are visiting tonight, the quiet spiral story of DNA inside your own body. You might imagine it as a silver staircase, turning slowly in weightless air. Along each step, tiny symbols are written, far too small to see clearly. You do not need to read them. It is enough to know that they are there, and that they have been there, in one form or another, for a very long time, passed gently through long chains of ancestors, through bodies that walked under different skies, carrying their own worries and hopes. Feel the bed beneath you again, the softness of the pillow, the slight heaviness of your arms. Notice how your body is breathing, even when you are not paying attention to it. Somewhere, deep inside, those spirals are quietly being copied, carefully repaired, and calmly read, without asking your permission, without demanding your effort. Life, at this tiny scale, is gentle and tireless, keeping watch so that you do not have to. If thoughts from the day try to wander back in, a conversation that felt unfinished, a decision still waiting, a small regret, you do not have to push them away. Just notice them. Thank them for visiting, and let them drift back out again, like small boats leaving a harbor at night. Each time they leave, your awareness can return to that quiet silver staircase inside the cell, turning with unhurried grace. You are not looking at something strange or foreign. You are looking at a part of yourself that is usually hidden from view, a soft, patient script that has been whispering instructions since before you took your first breath. For tonight, you do not need to understand how it works. You do not need to follow all its details or memorize any facts. You can simply rest beside it, the way you might sit beside a river long after the sun has gone down, hearing the water move but not needing to see every ripple. Let your jaw loosen. Let the space between your eyebrows soften. Let your tongue rest heavy and quiet behind your teeth. The more your body releases its tiny tensions, the easier it becomes to imagine that you are floating right there, in the calm interior of a cell, watching the coils of DNA glow with a faint, steady light. When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel at peace, simply because you existed, not because you finished everything, not because you were perfect, but simply because you are here, breathing, held together by countless tiny stories written in light. As you breathe in, imagine that you are drawing a little closer to that spiral. As you breathe out, imagine that you are settling into a quiet seat beside it, like taking the last empty chair in a silent library that has been waiting for you all along. In the next part of our journey, we will begin to wander along this inner staircase, discovering how it folds, remembers, and connects you to lives and landscapes you have never seen, all while your body continues to grow heavier, softer, and more ready to sleep. For now, there is nothing to do. Just breathe and rest. Here, at the doorway of your own hidden realm within. Settle once more into your position, as if you are gently returning to a favorite page in a book you did not finish last night. your body already knows the way back to comfort. Your muscles remember how to let go. You might feel the mattress supporting you, the familiar weight of the blanket, the quiet hum of the room. If there is any small tension still clinging to your shoulders or your chest, I imagine it as a loose thread you can simply let drop. The little lantern of your awareness is still turned inward, still shining softly into that inner night. You drift again toward the single glowing cell you chose before, the one that now feels almost like a tiny home. Step back inside its quiet center. The world outside this room, outside your body, grows distant and soft, like a city seen from far above at midnight. Inside the cell, everything moves slowly, as if Time has decided to stretch itself out so your mind can finally rest. In the center of this stillness, the spiral of DNA hangs like a silver ribbon of moonlight. Two delicate strands curve around each other, looping and looping in an elegant embrace. They do not rush. They do not search for attention. They simply exist, turning gently, holding their shape without effort. If you like, you can picture each strand as a staircase made of tiny glowing steps. One staircase rises, the other falls, but they are wound together so closely that they are never truly apart. They move as one, like two dancers taking slow, mirrored steps in a ballroom no one else can see. Each step is a small symbol, a letter in a very ancient alphabet. 4 simple shapes, repeated again and again in countless combinations. From those few letters, life writes its stories. The curve of your smile, the color of your eyes, the way your hands look so much like a parent's or a grandparent's when they rest on the table. You do not have to read this alphabet. You do not have to translate any of it into answers or plans. It is enough to know that, deep inside, a quiet language is always being spoken on your behalf. Take another slow breath in and out, and notice how, with each exhale, the spiral seems to shine just a little more clearly. Scientists have learned that if you could somehow take the DNA from your cells and stretch it all out in a line, it would reach lengths that are difficult to imagine. And if you could gather the DNA from many people, many plants, many animals, the amount of information held there would be beyond anything we store in our computers, our phones, or our machines. But instead of imagining something huge and overwhelming, imagine something very small. Picture a tiny crystal of sugar resting on your fingertip. Just a grain, almost too small to see clearly in the low light of your bedroom. Now imagine that, inside something that small, a pattern of DNA could quietly hold more information than all the digital data human beings have ever created. Not stacked in noisy servers, not flashing on screens, just resting there, like a snowflake that refuses to melt, carrying stories that stretch across ages. There is something comforting about that, isn't there? The idea that nature has found a way to tuck vast oceans of memory into spaces so small, so gentle, that you could almost miss them if you were in a hurry. Tonight, there is no need to hurry. Let your breath flow at its own pace, as if it, too, is reading along those spirals, taking in the quiet wisdom folded there. Look again at the staircase of light. Notice how the steps repeat in certain patterns, like a phrase in a lullaby that comes back again and again. Some sections are steady and predictable, reassuring in their sameness. Others hold tiny surprises, unique turns and twists that make you who you are. You might imagine that if this spiral were translated into music, some parts would sound like a slow, familiar rhythm, the kind of melody you could hum with your eyes closed. Other parts would be rare notes, little sparks of individuality shining through the calm. Between these notes, there would be moments of silence, spaces for rest, where nothing much happens at all. Your mind needs those spaces too. The pauses, the stretches of May, when nothing important must be decided or fixed. As you lie here, your thoughts may rise and fall like that melody. A memory surfaces. A worry whispers in the background. A piece of an old conversation drifts by. Whenever that happens, you can gently return to the spiral. See it turning in the dim blue light of your inner universe, steady and unbothered by the passing weather of your mind. In this microscopic library, chemistry becomes memory. Tiny shapes, joined in simple ways, keep track of so much. The way your heart responds to a steep hill, the way your skin knows how to heal after a small cut, the way your immune system remembers meeting a familiar cold and quietly prepares again. All of that is written here, in this silent script that rarely changes its tone, even when your day feels loud or chaotic. If it helps, you can imagine yourself walking along the curve of the spiral, your bare feet touching each glowing step. The air is still, neither hot nor cold. There is no wind, no pressure to move quickly. You walk at the pace of your own breathing, passing by stretches of repeating patterns like neighborhoods where the houses all have warm lights in their windows. Every so often, you pass a small bend in the staircase where the pattern shifts. A new sequence, a subtle variation, appears. You might think of these as the little differences that make your story yours. The way you laugh, the shape of your curiosity, the particular mixture of courage and tenderness that guides your choices. You do not need to analyze any of it. You do not need to label it or judge it. You are only observing, the way you would watch calm waves rolling in and out on a quiet beach at night. Somewhere above this microscopic world, the real night sky is hanging over the city or the town where you live. If you could step outside and look up, you would see stars scattered across the dark, each one sending light that has been traveling for years to reach your eyes. Here inside, in this private universe, a different kind of light travels along the spiral. It is not the light of distant suns, but the quiet glow of possibility, of instructions being followed, of life quietly continuing. You are part of both skies, the one above your roof and the one within your cells. For a moment, imagine that the spiral of DNA unfolds very gently, like a ribbon unrolling. As it does, the tiny letters along its length form into eye images rather than words, your ancestors walking under unfamiliar constellations, unknown forests and coastlines, old villages, Early cities, wide fields, empty deserts. Everything that came before you, softly condensed into this one shimmering thread. Soon, we will follow that thread backward, letting it guide us through Time, through the slow journeys of migration, through forgotten winters and summers, through the long patience of life, learning how to survive. But not yet. Right now, all you have to do is rest beside the spiral, feeling your own story breathing quietly around you. Let your exhale lengthen just a little more. Let your thoughts soften at the edges, like ink diffusing in water. Let the day slip a little further away, as the inner library of light continues to shine. Steadfast and serene, you are still there, resting where you are, and the spiral of light is still turning softly in the center of that tiny cell. Nothing around you has to change. You don't have to move a muscle. You don't even have to listen carefully. This story will keep flowing, like a river in the dark, whether you follow every bend or simply float along. Feel again the comfortable weight of your body, the way the mattress lifts you, the way the blanket settles around your shoulders or your legs. If there is a place that feels tight, perhaps at the back of your neck or along your lower back, imagine a warm hand gently smoothing that area, asking it to soften just a little more with each breath. Now, return to that single cell, glowing in your inner night like a small lantern at the center of a forest. Inside, the spiral of DNA still hangs in its quiet place, patient and self-contained, looping and folding with a grace that never seems to tire. This Time, as you stand beside it, I imagine that the spiral is not just a staircase, but also a path through Time. Each step, each glowing symbol, holds a memory of the world in which it once survived. If you follow the spiral backward, not with your feet, but with your gentle curiosity, you begin to move through years, then decades, then centuries. But the movement is slow, like turning the pages of an old photo album in the dim light of evening. You might picture faint images forming in the air around the spiral. A pair of weathered hands sowing seeds into dry soil. Someone walking along a shoreline at dawn. A family huddled near a small fire in winter. A lone figure standing at the edge of a forest, listening to distant thunder. Some of these people may be your ancestors. Most of their names you will never know. Their days were filled with their own worries, joys, small routines and quiet hopes, so much like yours, and yet lived under different skies. Somewhere in their bodies, spirals of DNA were quietly at work, just as they are in yours tonight. They carried instructions for how to endure cold nights, how to use the food available, how to heal from simple injuries, how to adapt to sun, rain, altitude, and the rhythm of the land. In cold soil, beneath layers of earth where Time moves slowly, fragments of that DNA sometimes lingered long after bodies had turned to dust. In dry caves, in ancient bones preserved by ice, small pieces of the spiral remained, like letters sealed in bottles and left gently on the floor of the ocean of Time. You can imagine those fragments as tiny lanterns too, still carrying glimmers of information from lives long finished. Not every message survives. Not every story is remembered. But enough details remain that when scientists look carefully, they can read echoes of migrations, of climates, of long ago meals and illnesses, hints of how life found ways to continue. For you, lying here in the half-dark, you don't need any of those details. You can simply rest in the feeling that your own DNA is part of an unbroken thread, reaching back through people who walked through storms and seasons before you, each passing forward what they could, until the thread arrived here, in your body, tonight. Perhaps you can recall an old photograph from your childhood, a grandparent, or an elderly relative smiling at the camera. Maybe you remember the shape of their eyes, the curve of their mouth, the way their hands looked when they held a cup of tea or rested on their knees. In a quiet way, those shapes are still here, echoed in you. DNA is not a strict script you are forced to follow. It is more like a set of gentle suggestions, a collection of possibilities shaped over a long, patient stretch of time. Some parts of the spiral have been copied again and again with very little change, like a familiar line in a family story that no one ever forgets. Other parts have shifted, adapting to new foods, new climates, new challenges. You might imagine your DNA as a book with many chapters. Some chapters are written in bold. Their instructions read often, shaping things like your height, your hair color, the color of your eyes. Other chapters are quieter, visited only under certain conditions, when there is a change in your environment, a period of stress, a new experience that asks your body to respond. And then there are pages that seem almost blank, areas that do not directly code for obvious traits. For a long time, they were thought of as empty or useless. But slowly, scientists have begun to suspect that these quiet regions may still help structure the story, like the white space on a page that lets the words breathe, or the silent pauses in music that make the notes more meaningful. As you lie here, you can think of those silent stretches of your DNA as places of rest inside your cells, calm neighborhoods in the city of your genome, where lights are dim and traffic is low, helping everything remain balanced. Outside your body, the world has its own silent spaces. Fields after harvest, streets late at night, the sea on a windless day, a room just after you have turned off the last lamp. Inside and outside, life needs those quiet intervals. Let your breath become one of them. In and out. A little slower now, as if your lungs are listening to the same rhythm that has kept your ancestors alive through winters and summers, through sickness and health, through calm years and difficult ones. Imagine now that the spiral of DNA gently expands in size until you can see not just one, but many spirals, drifting in countless cells across a landscape. Each cell belongs to a different living thing, a tree, a bird, a fish, a blade of grass, a tiny creature in the soil. Everywhere you look, there are quiet spirals, each one using a very similar alphabet. 4 simple letters, rearranged in countless ways, telling different versions of the same fundamental story: how to build a body. how to keep it running, how to respond to the world around it. There is something very soft and reassuring about this shared language. It means that the distance between you and the forest, between you and the ocean, between you and the birds that sing at sunrise, is not as large as it sometimes feels. You are made of the same kind of instructions. You are written in the same basic code. If you were to zoom out, farther and farther from your inner cell, farther from your bedroom, from your building, from your town, you would eventually see Earth itself, a blue and white swirl in the darkness, carrying forests and deserts, mountains and rivers, clouds and cities, all filled with living things quietly reading their spirals. And within each of those beings, inside each leaf and fin and feather and fingertip, DNA is doing its careful work, turning, copying, guiding, adjusting, without shouting, without fanfare. As you picture this, you might notice a small shift inside you, a sense of belonging not just to a family line or a nation, but to a wider, older pattern of life that has been unfolding for billions of years. You are not just an isolated individual trying to figure everything out alone before bed. You are one current in a huge, ancient river of life that has been flowing steadily long before your first cry, and will continue, in one form or another, long after tonight. Let that idea take some of the weight off your shoulders. You do not have to solve everything this evening. You do not have to hold the whole world together by yourself. Inside, your cells are already handling their tasks with quiet devotion. Outside, the greater patterns of life continue to turn, the moon waxing and waning, tides rising and falling, seasons shifting in their own time. You are allowed to let go for a while. If a memory drifts up, a childhood night under the stars, a moment when you felt very small and very safe at the same time, let it stay if it feels warm. If it becomes too sharp or complicated, imagine placing it gently at the edge of your awareness, like a photograph you set down on a bedside table to look at another day. The spiral of DNA is still there, a steady presence. The messages from the deep past are still humming softly in the background. They do not demand anything of you. They are simply reminding you. You are part of a long, continuous story. You have been carried this far. Tonight, it is all right to rest. You are still here, exactly where you need to be. The bed holds your weight. The room has chosen its temperature and settled into it. The sounds around you, if there are any, have drifted into the background, perhaps a distant car, a faint hum, or just the soft quiet of a late hour. If your hands are free, you might let them rest more openly, palms loose, fingers uncurling. If your jaw is clenched, you can let it release, allowing a tiny space to appear between your teeth. Your breath, too, can loosen, no longer marching in team with the day's demands, but wandering at its own, slower rhythm. Inside, the cell you have been visiting continues to glow, steady and calm. Tonight, let's imagine that if you stepped back just a little, you would see not one cell, but a whole landscape of them, a vast inner city made of living, breathing units, each with its own tasks, its own quiet routines. Somewhere in this city, your heart cells are contracting and relaxing, keeping time like the slow, dependable drum of a street musician. In another district, your liver cells are filtering, sorting, and tucking things away, like librarians working late in a silent building. Your lung cells open and close in gentle waves, exchanging air for life in a rhythm that continues even when you forget it is happening. In almost every one of these tiny rooms, the spiral of DNA rests in its safe place, waiting like a set of instructions in a filing cabinet. It does not shout. It does not glow with urgency. It simply exists, available whenever a cell needs to check a detail, to repair a part, or to make something new. If you like, you can picture this inner city at night. From far above, it shines in countless small lights, windows in tall buildings and small houses, scattered across an endless landscape. Some windows are bright, others are dim. Some buildings are humming with activity, others are resting. The DNA inside each cell is like the city's master plan, stored safely in the town hall. But not every instruction is used at once. Different neighborhoods light up different parts of the plan at different times. In your eyes, certain instructions are read that help you sense light and color. In your skin, other instructions are read that help you feel warmth, coolness, and gentle pressure from a caring hand. In your eye immune cells, a different set of instructions is ready, waiting to be read when your body needs extra protection. The spiral of DNA is the same kind of structure in so many of these cells, but the way it is read changes from place to place, like a song played in many different arrangements. The melody remains, but in some rooms it becomes a lullaby, in others a soft hum, in others almost silence. If you pay attention to your breath again, in and out, you might notice that your body is always listening to the world around it. When you walk out into bright sunlight, certain instructions inside your cells are read more often, helping your skin respond and protect itself. When you eat, others are read to help your body decide how to use that nourishment. When you move, stretch, or rest, different parts of the inner city light up in response. Even your experiences leave gentle traces. Moments of danger or stress can nudge some instructions to be read more often for a while. Moments of safety, kindness, and calm can, over time, encourage other instructions to step forward, reminding your body that it is allowed to relax. You do not have to manage any of this consciously. Your cells are already holding meetings, making choices, turning tiny switches on and off as needed, day and night. Perhaps you can imagine the DNA spiral as a long, beautiful book. Across its pages, little bookmarks appear, small marks that say, "Read this more often," or "Let this rest for now." Those bookmarks can change with seasons of your life, a period of hard work, a grief, a new habit, like walking in the early morning or going to bed a little earlier. Nothing is completely fixed. Nothing is completely rigid. Even at this level, life is a conversation between what is written and what is happening now. In the city outside your window, the buildings remain the same for many years, but the lights inside them change every night. Some floors glow brightly, others are dark. Some rooms are full of chatter, others are empty and still. In a similar way, the DNA inside your cells holds a stable structure, but the way it is used can shift gently in response to your days and your nights. This means that who you are is not carved in stone. You are more like a piece of music that can be played in slightly different ways, depending on the room, the mood, the moment. For someone lying awake with worry, this idea can feel like a small relief. You are not forever locked into one version of yourself. Your body is not a stubborn machine refusing to change. It is a living city, adjusting quietly, guided by a spiral library that is both ancient and adaptable. Let your next inhale be a little deeper, and your exhale a little longer. As if you are giving your inner city time to dim some of its lights, to close some of its busy offices, to let more windows go dark for the night. You might picture certain districts of this city settling into evening. The thinking district, where thoughts, race, and planning never seems to stop, slowly powers down. Lights in tall towers begin to wink out, one by one, as if someone is moving through, gently turning off switches. Only a few soft lamps remain, enough for the simplest tasks, keeping you breathing, keeping your heart beating, keeping you warm. Elsewhere, in neighborhoods where repair and maintenance happen, a calm, steady work continues. Some cells are patching tiny tears, replacing tired parts, sweeping away small bits of debris. It is slow, unhurried work, like gardeners trimming plants in a quiet park just before dawn. In the center of it all, the DNA spirals remain what they have always been: patient, reliable, and unafraid of the dark. If a thought rises in you, maybe a self-criticism, a worry about not having done enough, a memory of something you wish you had handled differently, imagine showing it this inner city. Show it the billions of cells that kept you alive today, following their instructions faithfully, even when you doubted yourself. Show it the countless tiny repairs that took place without your awareness. Show it the spirals that have carried your story through years of change and challenge. Then whisper to that thought, as if you were speaking to a tired child. It's all right. You don't have to stay awake and watch over everything. The city knows what to do. You can rest. You might notice, very gently, that your sense of I begins to soften at the edges. You are still you, with your memories, your feelings, your unique mix of tenderness and strength. But you are also this living city, this vast community of cells, this quiet network of spirals reading from their pages and doing their quiet work. Somewhere in this awareness is a soft discovery. You are not as alone as you sometimes feel. Even when the room is dark and the house is quiet, your body is not an empty shell. It is full of movement, communication, and care, a harmony of tiny processes that have only one simple goal: to keep you alive and give you another chance to greet the morning. Let that awareness be a gentle comfort, not a surge of excitement, not a burst of motivation, just a calm, steady understanding that something deep within you is on your side. As you breathe, I imagine that each exhale carries away a little of the weight you have been holding, the weight of expectations, of responsibilities, of roles. You do not have to abandon them forever. You are simply setting them down for a while, the way a traveler sets down a heavy bag at a resting place, trusting that it will still be there in the morning. For now, the living city inside you will keep doing what it has always done. The spirals will keep turning. Instructions will be quietly followed. Repairs will be made. Energy will be stored and released in precisely measured amounts. And you are invited to rest, to float at the edge of sleep, listening not to a list of tasks, but to a story about the patient, enduring intelligence of your own selves, a story that asks nothing from you but your presence in this gentle moment. You are still resting in the middle of your inner city, surrounded by countless tiny rooms and quiet spirals. Nothing urgent is happening here. No alarms, no sirens, just the soft, ongoing hum of life, doing what it knows how to do. Let your breath match that hum, in and out, as if every inhale is a small note, and every exhale is the gentle space that follows. The spiral of DNA you've been visiting, the one that began as a silver staircase and became a path through TMA, now takes on another form. Tonight, you can imagine that it is also a piece of music. Not the kind of music that blasts from speakers or fills crowded arenas. This is a quiet, patient melody, always there, even when you cannot hear it with your ears. If you could assign a note to each of the 4 letters in the DNA alphabet, the spiral would become a long, winding song. Some sections would be made of repeating notes, steady and familiar, forming a calm rhythm. Other sections would contain rare combinations, little surprises, chords that appear only once or twice, like brief flashes of color in a mostly gentle sky. Between those notes, there would be pauses. Those pauses are as important as the sound itself, just as the moments when nothing is asked of you are as important as the moments when you are busy and needed. You might picture this DNA melody playing softly underneath your entire day. When you wake up, it is already there. When you worry, it keeps playing in the background. When you laugh, or get frustrated, or feel tired, the melody does not scold or speed up. It simply continues, a dependable soundtrack for the life you are living. If you lie very still now, you may notice that there is a kind of rhythm inside you that has nothing to do with the clock on the wall. Your heart beats at its own pace. Your breath finds its own slow pattern. Feelings rise and fall like verses in a song. And all the while, in your cells, the quiet music of the code continues to unfold. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing in a dark, peaceful concert hall. There is no audience, no stage lights, just rows of empty seats and a wide, open space where sound can drift. Somewhere in that darkness, you begin to hear something faint. At first, it sounds like a single instrument, a low, steady tone, almost like a cello playing one long, gentle note. Then, very gradually, other instruments join in, higher tones, soft harmonies, tiny chimes. This is how your DNA melody might sound if it could be heard from a distance. Not as a chaotic jumble, but as a slow, layered composition. The basic rhythms that all humans share. The subtle variations that belong to your family line. The tiny, unique motifs that are yours alone. Somewhere in a forest, a tree has its own version of this music. In the ocean, a whale carries another. In a field, wildflowers have their quiet songs, too. The same 4 notes, the same basic letters, are rearranged again and again to create all of these different tunes. In that way, every living thing on Earth is part of one vast, shared composition. You are connected to that music, even when you feel separate, even on nights when loneliness presses in a little closer than usual. If you have ever felt, lying awake, that you are somehow out of tune with the world, too slow, too sensitive, too tired, too late, this is a gentle reminder. Deep inside, at the level of your cells, you have always belonged to the same orchestra. The tempo of your thoughts may speed up under stress. Your emotions may swell or dip like a sudden change in weather. But the code inside you remains calm, steady, and surprisingly forgiving. As you breathe now, imagine that on each exhale, you are lowering the volume of the day's noise, the critical voices, the unfinished tasks, the echoes of conversations that replay themselves in your mind. Turn them down, click by click, until what remains is an almost silent room. In that near silence, the music of your cells becomes easier to sense, not to hear with your ears, but to feel as a kind of subtle rightness underneath everything else. You might think of small moments when you felt unexpectedly at ease. Standing by a window while rain tapped gently on the glass. Watching shadows move across a wall as the sun went down. Hearing distant traffic blur into a constant, soothing murmur. In those moments, your mind wasn't racing to keep up. It was simply resting in the background music of your own existence. Your DNA has been playing this slow, quiet song since before you were born. It guided your cells as they divided, as your organs formed, as your tiny hands and feet grew. It has worked through fevers and colds, through long nights and busy days, through joy and heartbreak, without demanding thanks. Tonight, you don't need to fix anything about that song. You don't need to learn all of its patterns or make sense of its harmonies. You are invited only to accept that it is there, reliable and kind, even when your thoughts are not. There is another soft discovery waiting here. Some of the notes in your DNA are shared not just with your parents or grandparents, but with people you will never meet, those living today in other countries, speaking other languages, carrying other memories. Some are shared with strangers whose lives resemble yours in unexpected ways. Some are shared with people whose lives are very different. At the level of the code, the distances we feel between ourselves and others begin to blur. If you find yourself thinking about a difficult interaction from your day, you can picture the other person as a being whose cells are also reading from a spiral library, whose inner city is also working hard to keep them alive. Their melody might clash with yours sometimes, as instruments in an orchestra occasionally do. But beneath those clashes, there is still a shared foundation, a common language written in tiny letters long before either of you arrived here. You do not have to forgive everything tonight. You do not have to solve any relationship, past or present. You can simply rest in the knowledge that, at this very deep level, you and everyone you know, everyone you pass on the street, everyone whose messages appear on your screen, are built using variations of the same gentle music. If you feel your chest tighten, or a familiar wave of worry begin to rise, I imagine letting that feeling float for a moment on top of this underlying song. Below it, the rhythm of your breath continues. Below that, the reeds in your lungs whisper their soft exchange with the air. Below that, your blood moves in its patient circuits. And below that, the code in your cells holds the structure of it all like a steady baseline, unshaken by any single note of fear. The more you notice this layered support, the less pressure you need to place on your conscious mind. You do not have to think your way into safety every night. Some part of you is already working to keep you safe, to repair you, to carry you forward. Let your next inhale be easy. Let your exhale be a little longer, as if you are sighing out a small piece of tension you no longer need. In and out. You can imagine, if you like, that as you exhale, the music of your cells becomes just a little softer and lower, moving you closer to the frequencies of sleep. Soon, we will follow this quiet song beyond your body, into the forests, the oceans, and the night sky itself, where the same basic patterns of matter and energy shape stars and galaxies. For now, it is enough to lie here and know that in each of your cells, a tiny orchestra is playing, devoted only to one thing, giving you another chance to rest, to heal, and to wake again. You are not broken for feeling tired. You are not behind for needing sleep. You are a living being whose inner music has carried you through every single day so far. Tonight, you are allowed to stop conducting for a while. The music will keep playing, quietly, faithfully, until morning. The music in your cells is still playing. Nothing outside needs to change for you to feel it. The room is the same. The bed is the same. Your body is still resting, supported by fabric, by mattress, by the quiet intention of this moment you have given yourself. Let your breath come and go like a slow tide. In and out. With each exhale, your muscles can let go a little more around your eyes, at the base of your skull, along your spine where the day may have left its weight. Inside, the spirals of DNA continue their silent, patient work. They are not concerned with clocks or calendars. They obey a different measure of time, one that stretches far beyond a single day, or even a single lifetime. Up until now, we have stayed close to the inner city of yourselves, walking its streets, listening to its quiet music. Tonight, we are going to follow a softer, longer thread from the spirals inside you out into the wider history of the universe, and then gently back again. You do not need to brace yourself for anything dramatic. We are not racing through exploding stars or diving into violent events. We are simply tracing, slowly and calmly, how something as small as DNA came to exist at all. Imagine, once more, that you are standing beside a single spiral of DNA in one of your cells. Feel the calm of it. See the two shimmering strands, winding around each other in a slow, endless embrace. Each strand is made of smaller units, and those units are built from even smaller building blocks, atoms. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, hydrogen. These names may remind you of lessons from long ago, but you don't need to remember any details. You can simply think of them as tiny pieces of matter, the quiet bricks from which the spiral staircase of DNA is built. Here is the soft discovery. Many of these atoms were not born on Earth. Long before there were oceans, mountains, forests, or cities, there were stars, huge, bright furnaces burning in the dark of space. Inside their hot, dense cores, simple particles were pressed together over unimaginable stretches of TMA, forming new elements. Hydrogen, the most basic of them all, fused into helium. Helium fused into heavier elements. With patience beyond anything we can feel in our everyday lives, the interiors of stars became laboratories where the ingredients of future worlds were quietly forged. Some of those stars lived long, steady lives. Others eventually reached a point where they could no longer hold themselves together. When they ended, they returned their material to space, not angrily, not in a way you need to picture as violent, but as a vast, slow release of enriched matter back into the dark around them. That scattered material, cooled by time, carried by cosmic currents, drifted and gathered, and drifted again, forming clouds that slowly thickened. From those clouds, new stars ignited. Around them, disks of gas and dust circled, gradually clumping together to become planets. One of those planets, in a quiet corner of an ordinary galaxy, became Earth. All of this is far too slow and vast to truly imagine, especially late at night, especially when your eyes are already growing heavy. So you don't have to hold all the stages, all the steps. You can simply rest in the gentle idea that the atoms in your DNA, the carbon in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, the phosphorus in your cells, were once part of those ancient stars. At some point, long after those stars had given up their light, their scattered atoms found themselves drawn together into this planet, into its oceans and rocks and air. Eventually, near the surface of this world, in water warmed by sunlight and stirred by tides, simpler molecules began to form patterns. Some of those patterns could copy themselves. Over immense stretches of time, Slowly, slowly, they became more intricate, more stable, more capable of storing information. And at some point in that long story, the shape we now call DNA emerged, a spiral that could carry instructions forward, generation after generation. You do not need to follow every bend in this path. You do not need to solve the questions that scientists are still exploring. Tonight, it is enough to know that the spirals in your cells are part of a very old chain of events. The atoms in you have been many things. Part of a star, part of a cloud, part of a stone, part of water, part of a plant, part of an animal, and now part of you. The instructions those atoms participate in, the twist of DNA that guides your cells, have also come a long way. Through organisms that lived and died, through ancestors who loved and lost, through lineages that adapted to ice and heat, to scarcity and abundance. All of that history has settled gently into this moment, into your body lying here, breathing in the dark. If your life has ever felt random or rootless, this perspective can be quietly reassuring. You are not a mistake that appeared out of nowhere. You are a point along a thread that began in the heart of stars and wove its way through the entire history of life on this planet. Take a slow breath in, as if you are drawing a little of that understanding into your chest. Let it out, as if you are releasing any belief that you must earn your place here. You are here. You exist. The universe has already done the work of bringing you to this point. Some nights, that can be hard to feel. Responsibilities, disappointments, and old regrets can pile up, making your life feel heavy or small. But when you zoom out, not in a way that overwhelms you, but in a way that softens your focus, you see that smallness differently. You become like a single, glowing note in a vast piece of music. On its own, the note is brief and fragile. Within the composition, it is part of something that has been unfolding for a very long time. When was the last time you looked up at the night sky and let that thought soothe you, rather than intimidate you? You don't need big answers. You don't need to know why in any complete way. It is enough for tonight to feel. The atoms in your body have been part of stars. The pattern in your cells has been part of Earth's long memory. The breath moving in and out of you now connects you, in this small, ordinary moment, to the largest cycles of TM and matter there are. Somewhere far away, light is still leaving distant stars, beginning journeys that will take years, decades, or centuries to reach other eyes. Here, much closer, a softer light glows inside each of your cells, reading from the same spiraled text it read yesterday, guiding you quietly toward tomorrow. If thoughts of what comes next try to intrude, the meetings, the decisions, the changes waiting on the horizon, you can gently place them in a wider frame. Yes, they matter. Yes, they are part of your story. But they are not the entire story. Underneath them, there is this older, slower story. Atoms joining and separating. Stars forming and fading. Molecules organizing life experimenting, instructions refining. And now, you, a human being in the quiet hours, listening to a sleep story, trying to find a gentler way to end the day. You do not have to carry the universe on your shoulders. You are already being carried by it. Let that be your permission to rest. As your breath continues in and out, imagine that each exhale lets you fall just a little more into alignment with this ancient, patient rhythm. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time, at this point on the thread. The spirals in your cells will keep turning, whether you stay awake worrying or allow yourself to drift into sleep. They will guide repairs, store memories, and quietly prepare for another day. Your only task now is to trust them enough to let go, a little more, with each breath. As we move slowly toward reflection and rest, you are still lying where you are, in the same quiet room, under the same sky. Nothing outside you has changed very much. But inside, you may notice a small shift, a softening, a little more space between thoughts, as if some invisible knot has loosened just a bit. Your breath continues its slow rhythm, in and out. The living city of your cells is still at work. The music written in your DNA still plays in the background, patient and unhurried. Now, let's move closer again to a single cell. You can picture it as a tiny, glowing room inside you. Its walls made of a thin, flexible membrane. Within those walls, faint structures drift and work, each with its own task. In the center, protected and quiet, the spiral of DNA rests like a rolled-up map. Tonight, we will think of that spiral as exactly that, a map. Not a map of streets and buildings, but a map of connection, a record of how life has woven itself through time to arrive here, as you. If you could unroll this map and stretch it out on a table, it would not show countries or borders. Instead, it would show patterns, repeating sequences that link you to your parents, to grandparents you remember and great-grandparents you never met, and to others farther back, whose stories have been forgotten. It would show echoes of migrations, long walks across plains, slow journeys by river, crossings of mountains and deserts. It would show adaptations to cold winds, to strong sunlight, to damp forests and open coasts. It would show how bodies learned, over generations, to handle certain foods, certain illnesses, certain climates. All of that is folded into the spiral, not as clear pictures, but as tiny changes in the code, accumulated over time. When you feel alone, or as if you have been abandoned in your own life, this can be a quiet comfort. Deep in your cells, you are still linked to a very long story. You may not know the names or faces of the people who came before you, but their existence is written in the spiral, in the traits you carry, in the ways your body responds, in the subtle tendencies that shape your days. Take a gentle breath in and out. You do not have to romanticize this story. Not everything in your ancestral past was peaceful or kind. There were hardships, mistakes, conflicts, and losses. But there were also acts of care. Someone sharing food. Someone tending a wound. Someone holding a crying child through a long night. Someone finding a way to keep going in a hard season. If you are here, it means that somehow, through all of those mixed experiences, the thread was never completely broken. Somebody survived the winter. Somebody survived the journey. Somebody survived the heartbreak. And the spiral in their cells was passed on, in many tiny variations, until it reached you. You do not have to feel grateful for every part of that history. You do not have to approve of everything your ancestors did or believed. But you can allow yourself to feel, just for a moment, that you are held within a larger continuity, that your life is not a random, disconnected flash in the dark, but part of a long, ongoing weaving. Imagine now that you lift the spiral gently in your hands. It is not heavy. It is not fragile either. It is strong, flexible, and surprisingly calm. As you hold it, the spiral begins to glow a little brighter, and faint images appear again, not just from the deep past, but from your own life. You see scenes you recognize. A childhood afternoon, perhaps, with sunlight on a wall and dust motes drifting lazily in the air. A moment of laughter at a kitchen table. A walk alone in the evening when your thoughts finally grew quiet. A time when someone placed a blanket over your shoulders without saying a word. These memories, too, live in your cells, not as letters in the DNA itself, but as changes in how different parts of the code are read, as connections between neurons, as chemical traces that tell your body what it has been through. Some of those traces are gentle and comforting. Others are heavier, signs of stress, of fear, of times when your body had to stay ready and alert for too long. Tonight, you don't have to untangle which is which. You don't have to judge whether you reacted in the right way to anything that has happened. You can simply acknowledge that your body has been keeping a record, doing its best to adapt to whatever you have faced. Sometimes, when we are hard on ourselves, when we say, "I should be stronger," or "I should be over this by now," we forget how much quiet work our cells are already doing for us. They repair when they can. They compensate when they must. They keep going through nights of poor sleep, through days of stress, through periods of grief. There is a line of compassion hiding in the science here. Even if your mind criticizes you, your body does not. Your cells never say, "You're not enough." They never say, "You failed." They never say, "You don't deserve rest." They just keep working, reading from the spiral, adjusting, repairing, adapting, hour after hour. So, if you feel that you have been too harsh with yourself, you might imagine placing that spiral map against your chest, like a soft, glowing scroll. Let it rest there, over your heartbeat. With each inhale, imagine that your heart is sending a gentle wave of warmth up through the spiral, as if you are saying to your own cells, "Thank you. I see how much you've carried." With each exhale, Imagine that the spiral is sending something back down, a quiet reminder that you are permitted to be exactly as you are in this moment. Tired, uncertain, hopeful, sad, grateful, numb, or some shifting combination of all of these. You are not being graded right now. You are simply being held by a body that has done its best with everything it has been given. If there is a lingering fear in you, perhaps about growing older, about illness, about changes you cannot control, you can gently lay that fear alongside the spiral map as well. Yes, bodies age. Yes, DNA is not perfect. Yes, there are risks and unknowns. But there is also resilience. Repair systems that work quietly. Backup plans written into the code. Cells that sacrifice themselves so others may remain healthy. Communities of tissues that support one another. Your body is not a passive object waiting to fail. It is an active, living network, trying constantly to keep you in balance, adjusting to each new day, each new challenge. You do not have to pretend that this erases all danger or pain, but you can let it soften the edges of your fear. You are allowed, tonight, to trust your body a little more than you usually do. Trust it to breathe. Trust it to keep your heart beating. Trust it to handle, for these few hours, whatever needs handling, while your mind takes a step back. Take another slow breath in and out. If your eyes are not already closed, you might let them drift shut now, or at least grow heavy. Let your inner vision rest on that spiral map, glowing softly at the center of your chest. From far away, it would look like a single point of light in the darkness. Closer up, it is a detailed, intricate record, not only of what you have inherited, but of how you have lived. You are both the continuation of a long, ancient thread and the author of new patterns that will ripple outward in ways you may never see. You do not have to understand all of that tonight. You only need to know that inside every cell is a map of connection, a reminder that your life is linked to other lives, across time and space. You were never meant to carry your story alone. You are still here, in this same patch of night, carried by breath you don't have to think about. The bed has accepted your weight. The pillow knows the shape of your head. The blanket has settled into its favorite folds. Nothing urgent is asking for your attention now. If any small tension has crept back into your body, at your temples, in your shoulders, in the space between your ribs, imagine breathing in around that place, and then letting your exhale move through it like warm water. In and out. The inner city of your cells continues to glow softly. The spiral map in the center of each one is still there, unbroken, unhurried. For a moment, bring your attention back to that single cell at the center of this story. You step inside again, not with effort, but the way a dream changes scenes. One moment you are in your bedroom. The next, you are standing in a tiny, luminous chamber. Above you, the spiral of DNA hangs like a slow, turning sculpture. You have seen it as a staircase, a melody, a map. Now, you can also think of it as a promise. Not a promise that everything will always be easy or painless. Not a promise that nothing will ever change. But a promise that, deep inside you, there is a persistent will to keep going, to repair, to adapt, to continue. Every day, small things go wrong inside your cells. A letter in the code is copied imperfectly. A strand breaks. The structure wears down from use. And every day, without your awareness, quiet systems move in to help. They check the spiral against its partner strand, like a reader comparing two copies of a page. They trim away damaged pieces. They rebuild missing sections, using the remaining intact pattern as a guide. You do not have to visualize any of this clearly. You do not need to remember names or steps. All you need is the gentle understanding that you are not failing simply because you are tired or healing slowly. Your body is always trying. Even when you feel disappointed in yourself, your cells are still at work, doing what they can with what they have. Sometimes, the repairs are imperfect. Sometimes, the wear and tear of life leaves marks that cannot be completely erased. But even then, your body continues the conversation, adjusting, compensating, rerouting, remodeling. Think of an old house that has been lived in for many years. The floorboards may creak. The paint may be chipped in places. A door might not close as smoothly as it once did. And yet, people still gather there. Lights still turn on at dusk. Warm meals are still prepared in the kitchen. Laughter and tears and quiet evenings still unfold within its walls. Your body is like that. Not a perfect, untouched structure, but a lived-in home, with signs of time and experience that do not erase its worth. Inside that home, the spiral of DNA is like the original blueprint, worn at the edges, perhaps, but still legible, still guiding the repairs, still shaping the way the house holds together. If you have ever apologized to your own body for being harsh with it, for driving it too hard, for ignoring its signals, imagine that apology being heard not by a single, critical judge, but by billions of small, patient workers who do not hold a grudge. They simply keep going. You can let that image soften the relationship you have with yourself, even if only a little. You may have spoken to yourself in ways you would never use with a friend. You may have demanded perfection from a body that has carried heavy loads. You may have called yourself weak for feeling overwhelmed. But if you could listen in on your cells, you would hear none of that language. They respond to damage not with blame, but with action. They respond to shortage not with contempt, but with adjustment. They respond to stress not with accusation, but with effort, sometimes too much effort, working overtime until they are exhausted. Perhaps you can take one slow breath and, on the exhale, to send a small, quiet message back down to them. Thank you. I didn't always notice, but thank you. Your cells do not need this gratitude in order to keep working. They will go on regardless. The gratitude is for you. It is a way of loosening the knot between your sense of worth and your sense of performance. You are not only valuable when you are productive. You are not only allowed to rest when everything is finished. You are not only good enough on the days when you meet your own expectations. There is a deeper layer, the layer where existence itself is already a miracle of improbable events. A long chain of survival and adaptation that has delivered you into this particular evening. Consider, for a moment, all the nights that came before this one. Nights when your ancestors lay awake, listening to storms or animals or the creak of unfamiliar houses. Nights when they worried about harvests, about loved ones, about journeys that had not yet been made. Nights when they felt restless under different stars, far from the bed you know now. Most of those nights have been completely forgotten. The details of their worries have evaporated. The specific thoughts they replayed are gone. The exact shape of their fear or hope has faded. What remains is the simple fact that somehow they made it to morning enough times for the line to continue. You, too, have made it to morning many times, even after nights that seemed endless. In the grand story written in your cells, your worries are real. They matter. They shape your choices, but they are also fleeting. They are like weather passing over a landscape. The landscape is the deeper thing. Your DNA, your cells, your tissues, your organs. These are the hills and valleys and rivers over which the storms move. Some days are bright. Some are grey. Some are sharp with thunder. But the land remains, changing slowly, growing new forests where old ones have burned, reshaping its contours over long stretches of Tiame. Tonight, you are allowed to experience your thoughts as weather rather than destiny. If a thought comes that says, "I am not doing enough," you can imagine it as a cloud, heavy, perhaps, but still only a shape in the sky, not the ground you walk on. If a thought says, "I should be stronger," you can picture it as a gust of wind, strong for a moment, then gone, leaving the mountains and oceans beneath it unchanged. Below all of that, your body is still here, breathing, its cells still reading from the spiral, still implementing the same quiet plan for staying alive. Take another breath in and let it out slowly. You might notice now that your body feels a little heavier against the bed. Your limbs may feel slightly distant, as if wrapped in a gentle, warm fog. This is a good sign. It means you are drifting closer to the edge of sleep, where thoughts grow softer and images begin to blur. From this softer place, look once more at the spiral map in your chest. See it as a point of steady light within you. Not bright, not demanding, just there, constant, enduring, silently coordinating so much of what keeps you here. You are woven from this light. You are shaped by this map. You are sustained by this quiet, ongoing care. Whatever you think about yourself in the daylight, whatever stories you tell about your successes or failures, do not change the basic reality that your cells have never given up on you. They are still here. You are still here. Tonight, you do not have to prove anything to deserve rest. You can let the city dim its lights. You can let the music in your cells drop to a lower, slower register. You can let your thoughts wander and thin out, like mist dissolving as the air cools. Soon, we will move into the softest part of this journey, the place where reflection melts into pure rest, and where the story becomes more like a lullaby than a lesson. For now, stay with the simple feeling. Inside every cell is a map of connection and care. It has accompanied you through every single moment of your life so far. It will continue its quiet work while you sleep. You are allowed to let go into that tonight. Your body has already begun to understand something that your mind is only slowly remembering. It is allowed to rest. The room holds you. The bed cradles you. Your breath moves through you without asking permission. Inside, the living city of your cells hums more softly now. More windows have gone dark. More tiny offices have closed for the night. Only the most essential lights remain on, the lights that keep your heart beating, your lungs moving, your temperature steady. At the center of all this quiet activity, the spiral map in your cells is still there, steady and unchanged. It has not been shaken by your worries. It has not been disappointed by your doubts. It has simply kept doing what it does best, offering instructions, keeping structure, holding the memory of how to go on. When the day is noisy, it is easy to forget that there is something inside you that is older and calmer than your latest thought. Thoughts tend to run in circles. Did I say the right thing? Did I make the right decision? Will I be able to handle what comes next? They loop and loop, like restless birds circling a tree that is not going anywhere. DNA is more like the tree. While thoughts fly and wheel and scatter, the spiral remains rooted in place, carrying rings of memory that go far deeper than any single day. If you like, you can imagine your thoughts as those circling birds. They may be active, loud, and full of feeling. They may swoop low, close to your face, then suddenly dart away. But below them, the trunk of the tree stands, its hidden rings recording years of growth, storms endured, seasons passed, sunlight absorbed. Your DNA is not emotionally impressed by the latest criticism you heard, or the latest plan that worries you. It continues to offer the same quiet instruction it has offered since before you were born. Build, repair, adapt, continue. There is a kind of relief in remembering that you were never meant to carry everything at the level of thought. Your body has its own deep intelligence. Tonight, you are invited to lean into that. Take a slow breath in and let it go. As you breathe, consider this gentle question. What if, just for tonight, you let the story in your cells watch over you, instead of you watching over everything? You have spent so much time keeping an eye on the world, checking messages, checking news, checking on people you care about, checking your own behavior, your own progress, your own reflection in the mirror of other people's opinions. It is exhausting for a nervous system to be on watch all the time. Meanwhile, your cells have been on a different schedule. They follow cycles, waking, working, pausing, repairing, that do not consult your inbox or your to-do list. Long before you ever learned to read a clock or a calendar, your cells were reading the cycles of light and dark, activity and rest. They know that night is for slowing, for repair, for letting go of the constant demand to do and to decide. If part of you feels guilty about resting, as if you should be using every free moment for something useful, remember that rest is not the opposite of usefulness. Rest is part of the design. In the spiral of your DNA, there are instructions for active work and instructions for quiet maintenance. There are signals that say, now we build, and signals that say, now we clean up, mend, and prepare. Both are necessary. If you never allowed your body to rest, it would have fewer chances to mend what has been strained. So when you give yourself over to sleep, you are not wasting time. You are cooperating with a plan that is far older and wiser than any productivity rule you have ever read. Think back to a night when you were very young and someone else watched over you. Maybe a parent or caregiver sat awake while you slept, listening for your breathing, ready to comfort you if you cried. Maybe someone checked in on you, tucking the blanket more securely around you before they went to bed. You were not conscious of their vigilance. You simply slept, trusting without knowing you were trusting. Now, your cells are like that caregiver. They are on duty while you rest. They are monitoring, adjusting, repairing, and balancing, using the spiral map as their guide. You do not need to stay awake to supervise them. If a part of you feels nervous about letting go, afraid that if you stop thinking, something will go wrong, you can gently remind that part. There is a deeper layer still awake. There are billions of small guardians at work in me. I am not abandoning everything. I am handing some of it back to the systems that were designed to carry it. Feel the bed beneath you again. Notice how gravity presses you downward and how the mattress presses back, holding you up. You are supported from below by fabric, foam, springs, wood, and floor. Inside, you are supported by bones, muscles, blood, and the quiet choreography of your organs. Underneath even that, you are supported by the code in your cells, the invisible script that keeps the whole arrangement from unraveling. From this perspective, you can let your sense of self widen just a little. You are not only the voice in your head, you are also this intricate system of support, this map of connection, this music of microscopic processes. When a harsh thought arises, I should have done better, or I'm not enough, you can picture it as a single word scribbled in the margin of a huge, ancient book. The book is your deeper story, written in spirals and cells and slow, years-long changes. The scribbled note might be loud for a moment, but it does not rewrite the book. You do not have to fight the thought. You can let it be there, small and temporary, while your awareness rests in the wider text. If you want, you can place a gentle hand on your chest or your abdomen, wherever feels most comforting, and feel the rise and fall of your breath under your palm. With each inhale, silently think, here. With each exhale, silently think, still here. In, here. Out, still here. Nothing you have faced has erased you. Nothing you have worried about has stopped your cells from continuing their quiet work. You have already survived 100% of your most difficult days so far. Your body has already carried you through things you once weren't sure you could handle. Tonight, you do not need to rehearse every possible problem. You do not need to plan for every possible future. You can let the long story written in your DNA, the one that has navigated storms and winters and changes you cannot remember, hold some of that for you. You have done enough for one day. Let the spiral be the one that remembers. Let the cells be the ones that keep working. Your only job now is to rest in their care and to allow sleep to come when it is ready, not as a task to be completed, but as a gentle return to the rhythm your body has known since before you ever learned the word tired. There is nothing more you need to understand tonight. The spiral has been unfolded and folded again. The inner city has dimmed its lights. The music in your cells has slowed to a soft, steady hum. You are still here, in this same room, resting in this same body, a body that has carried you through every hour of this day, and through so many days before it. Let your attention come back, very gently, to the simplest things. The weight of your body against the bed, the touch of fabric on your skin, the way the air feels as it slides in through your nose and out again. You do not need to travel any farther tonight, not into the deep past, not into the stars, not even into the spirals of your cells. You have seen enough for now. The universe that lives inside you is still there, of course. The spirals of DNA are still turning in their quiet spaces. The map of connection inside every cell is still being read. The stardust in your bones is still held together by patient, invisible forces. But you do not have to watch it all. Like a child who has stayed up late listening to adults talk in another room, you are allowed to drift away while the story continues without you. Take a slow breath in and let it fall out. If thoughts try to rise about tomorrow, about yesterday, about things left undone, you can greet them kindly, as if they were visitors arriving too late in the evening. You might say, silently, "Not now. I know you. We can talk another tea, May. Tonight is for rest." Then imagine those thoughts taking a seat in a quiet waiting room, somewhere outside your bedroom door. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, a stack of magazines they can flip through until morning. They are not gone forever, but they do not get to climb into bed with you. Inside, your cells have already begun their night shift. Some are gently repairing small frayed edges. Some are sweeping away debris from the day's activity. Some are sorting and storing, tucking experiences into long-term memory, deciding what to keep and what to let fade. You are not in charge of this work. You are simply the one who gets to benefit from it. If there is a part of you that struggles with rest, a voice that says, "I should be doing more," or "I haven't earned sleep yet," imagine placing that voice in a small, comfortable boat. Around the boat is a vast, dark blue lake, still and silent under a night sky. Gently, you set the boat on the surface of the water. You place that restless voice inside, wrapped in a soft blanket. And with one small push, you send the boat gliding away from the shore. It doesn't go far. It doesn't disappear. It simply drifts out onto the quiet water, where it can rock itself calm, watched over by the stars. You remain on the shore, or perhaps you are already in the water, floating on your back, held up by the surface as effortlessly as your body is held up by the bed. Above you, the sky is deep and clear. You might picture faint bands of the Milky Way stretching overhead, like a distant echo of the spirals in your cells. Those stars have been there a very long time. The atoms in your body have belonged to them. For tonight, it is enough to let that connection be a soft comfort, not something to analyze. You are not separate from the universe that surrounds you. You are an expression of it, a brief, luminous pattern in a much longer story. And tonight, that pattern is allowed to rest. If any emotion rises, sadness, gratitude, regret, relief, you do not have to chase it or explain it. You can let it move through you the way a wave passes through the surface of a lake, lifting it, reshaping it for a moment, then smoothing back out. Underneath, the deeper water remains calm. Underneath your changing feelings, the deeper layers of your body remain calm, too. Cells continue their work. DNA continues its quiet reading. Life continues its patient effort to keep you here. Your only task now is to cooperate by letting go. Let your breath grow even softer. It doesn't need to be deep or impressive. It can be small and easy, like the breath of someone who has finally put down a heavy load. If your jaw is still holding on, let it release. If your hands are still slightly clenched, let them open. If your shoulders are still guarding your heart, let them fall away from your ears and sink into the bed. You might imagine, just for a moment, that all the stories you have ever heard about stars, about cells, about ancestors, about the universe, are now gathering around your bed like a circle of soft lanterns. Each lantern holds a small, gentle truth: that you are made of stardust, that you are rooted in a long line of survivors, that your cells have not given up on you, that you have the right to rest, simply because you exist. The lanterns do not shine brightly. Their light is low and warm, just enough to keep the darkness from feeling empty. And as you watch them, their glow begins to fade, one by one, like distant windows going dark as a town falls asleep. You do not need them to stay lit. The truth they carry is already inside you. Soon, all that remains is the darkness of your room, the weight of your body, and the rhythm of your breath. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, you can let that memory rest beside you now, like a folded blanket at the foot of the bed. It is there if you want it. It is not required. What is required, what your body quietly asks for, is simply this: that you allow yourself to stop. Stop measuring. Stop comparing. Stop rehearsing every possible mistake. Stop scanning the horizon for dangers that are not here in this moment. Right now, you are in a room. In that room, there is a bed. On that bed, there is a body. Inside that body, there is a city of cells. Inside those cells, there are spirals of DNA, carrying the long story of life. All of it, right now, is on your side. Here, no one rests alone. Every story, every cell, every spiral, every human life lying awake or already asleep is like a soft lantern in the dark, glowing for a while in the same vast night. You are one of those lanterns. And now, it is time for your light to dim gently, not in defeat, but in trust. Trust that your body knows what to do. Trust that your cells will keep working. Trust that morning will come when it is ready, bringing whatever it brings. You do not have to meet the morning yet. For now, you can let your thoughts blur, your awareness soften, your sense of separation loosen, like pages of a book slowly closing. If there is anything you did not understand in this story, you can leave it. It doesn't need to be resolved for you to sleep well. The spirals will keep turning whether you grasp every detail or not. So let it all drift away now. The eye images of stars, the inner city, the map, the music, the long thread of TMA. Let them sink beneath the surface of your awareness, where they can settle quietly like sand on the floor of a still ocean. All that remains is darkness, breath, and the soft invitation of sleep. Let your eyes grow heavier, if they are not closed already. Let your thoughts thin out until they are more feeling than language, more warmth than words. You are safe enough, in this moment, to rest. You are allowed, in this life, to let go, again and again, of the need to carry everything alone. Your body will keep watch. The story written in your cells will keep unfolding. The night will hold you. And you can sleep now.